Okay, this should be working. I'm just going to test it out, and we'll get this show on the road. Yep, it seems to be working. Alright, so today we're going to be discussing two main tropical threats across the global international tropics right now. Mainly Hurricane Erin and then Invest 90W. One could impact the North Carolina Outer Banks area and parts of Bermuda, whereas the other one could impact the northern Philippines and then onto Vietnam and China. Just going to confirm this is working. Yes, it is. Okay. So, let's start off with Erin in its graphic here. This is the forecast cone for the next 5 to 7 days, although the 6 to 7 day part of the cone is not in this graphic because we're mainly focused on the next 5 days of impacts mainly. So let's start off with the forecast. Again, this was made at 2 p.m. Eastern time, so this is a little bit out of date. But we do have the system strengthening to a major hurricane, and it may be doing that sooner than we initially thought. It may become a major hurricane even within the next 6 hours or so. Anyways, it is expected to become a Category 3 before, mainly also due to a jet interaction. But then it will begin to weaken after the next 48 hours or so, as it begins to get sheared pretty heavily from the southwest. And then it will speed off through the northeast, still remain a hurricane by the time it nears Newfoundland, and then become a post-tropical cyclone by day 5, before then speeding off towards the United Kingdom, Ireland, and parts of Iceland. So that's a current look at the forecast. Now, if we take a look at the unofficial threat level over the next 5 days, we can see that there were some areas down here in the marginal risk in part of the Turks and Caicos Islands and the central Bahamas. But now, as the system is moving farther away, that isn't really happening anymore. But if we take a look at coastal South Carolina and coastal North Carolina and even parts of coastal Virginia and Delaware, we can see that there are some areas of marginal impacts, and that's mainly due to surge, although there is some marginal impacts for wind. Now, there is going to be an area here that's not really shown on this graphic because of how zoomed out it is, but there are going to be slight impacts forecasted for parts of the Outer Banks. This is mainly a surge threat because the system is going to be so expansive and so large, it's going to be delivering 2 to 4 feet of surge for part of those Outer Banks areas, even though the system is well away from those islands. I did want to also mention there is a marginal risk for Bermuda and a marginal risk for, I forget the island name here, but this is south of Nova Scotia. So that's the current look at Erin right now in terms of the forecast over the next few days. Now, if we take a look at the global view of tropics right now, we have a fair amount going on. We have Hurricane Erin, of course, which is going to be going off towards the northeast. But we also have 2 other waves that we'll need to watch, mainly this one with a 50% chance of development over the next 7 days. It is looking more and more likely that it will curve out to sea, but it has, again, a 50-50 shot of developing. And we have Invest 99L, which could briefly become a tropical cyclone over the next 12 to 36 hours. We've given it around a 40% chance of doing so. In the Eastern Pacific, we have a fairly weak signal with a 10% chance over the next 7 days. That's mainly the 4 to 7 day time frame. If we look in the Western Pacific, we have a new tropical depression 18W, which may become a brief storm as it nears Japan and South Korea. We also have the remnants of 17W, which are moving further into China, should dissipate over the next 6 to 12 hours. And of course, we have 90W with a 20% chance of development over the next 48 hours and a 60% chance over the next 7 days. So it could develop before impacting the Philippines, and it's more likely to develop in the South China Sea, where it could impact Hainan Island, parts of southern China, and then even onto Vietnam. And beyond that, there's another signal with a 20% chance, mainly in the 5 to 7 day time frame. Now, looking at the code, we are currently in code orange due to Erin, very minimal code orange, and currently no code on any of these systems just yet. Looking at the satellite imagery of Erin, we can see that a lot of the convection is wrapping up shear now on the northern side. Since shear has relaxed, the system is now trying to rebuild that eye wall in its core. So it's been able to try to strengthen now over the past 6 hours or so. Before its center was more exposed, now we can actually see that the center is fully covered there with convection, and it's doing quite healthy right now. It has some pretty expansive outflow, as we can see here. Its exhaust is doing quite well there, and I mean, the system should continue to intensify to a Category 3, maybe mid-range Category 3, even Category 4 can't really be ruled out just yet, mainly due to that favorable jet interaction. Now, if we take a look at over here on the forecast cone and why it's going to strengthen some more, we can see that the waters are very warm for it right now, over 30 degrees Celsius. But those water temperatures are expected to cool, but they will still stay quite warm over the next mainly 3 days or so, only dipping down to at least around 26 degrees Celsius before the system then moves into cooler waters by day 4 and 5. If we look at oceanic heat content here, this is why the system's been able to maintain some of its strength even though it's stalled. Oceanic heat content is pretty favorable over here. But of course, as it moves farther northeast, it becomes less favorable, but it's not much of a problem anymore because the system starts to speed up. And yeah, that's it for that. Now, if we take a look at the distance right now, and again, I did want to mention the fact that the storm has been a little bit more east of forecast there. So it is going to maybe try to make a little bit of a wobble more to the west, but this wobble to the east has been good news because, I mean, the farther it stays away from North Carolina, the better, although that would end up being worse conditions for Bermuda. But if we take a look at the distance from some areas, looking at around the distance from Miami, around 470 miles away, Jacksonville, around 570, Myrtle Beach, it's around 570 as well, Wilmington, around 570, Bermuda, it's also around 580 miles away. Looking at the Outer Banks, it looks like it's around 570 miles away from as well, and Virginia Beach, around 680 miles. Looking at Nova Scotia, around 1,300 miles away, and parts of Newfoundland, around 1,700 miles away. So again, it's quite far from all those land masses, but remember the system is going to be expanding in size. So as its winds grow, or as its size grows, its impact range will grow as well. That's why tropical storm warnings are in effect for North Carolina, and tropical storm watches are in effect for Bermuda. Again, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat, and I will answer towards the end part of the stream after I cover all of this. Now let's take a look at some of the models. The European model does show some pretty fair strengthening to a Category 3 or Category 4. It maintains that as it nears North Carolina. Before then it starts to gradually weaken and then become post-tropical over the next 5 days or so. It does have it interacting with that upper level low there and then becoming quite a powerful bomb cyclone. I'm not quite sure if that will happen or not. And for that next system, after Erin, doesn't show a whole lot happening with that. Now looking at the GFS run, the American run here, it also has the system strengthening to maybe a Category 3, maybe Category 4, as it nears Nova, or as it nears the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and then speeds off through the northeast, and then heads towards Ireland and Iceland over the next 7 days. It does have that next system forming, maybe into a hurricane. And now looking at the German run, it does have the system quickly strengthening to a Category 4, mainly mid-ranged, before then beginning to weaken when it's south of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. But again, keeps it fairly south of those areas. Doesn't really impact them with much rain. Does have the other system forming into a tropical cyclone, but also curves it out to sea. Looking at the Canadian run, whoops, let me update this. It's a little bit out of date. Canadian run does show some slight strengthening, maybe only to a Category 3, before then curving off towards the northeast and then moving towards Spain, Portugal, those areas over the next 7 days. Now looking at ensembles here, it's fairly consistent that it's not going to be making a landfall. It could get close, it could stay far away from the Outer Banks of North Carolina, and it should generally stay away from Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. And then after that, it's quite uncertain as to where it will go. Is it going to curve off through the northeast like that, or is it going to continue moving to the east? And here, looking at the ensembles on this, we can see how it's pretty certain on where the center is going to go. These are the European ensembles. Now, looking at the American ensembles, it should be a similar story here. Let me update this just to make sure. Yep, I mean, they all stay away from the center, at least. The core stays away from land, although some of the ensembles here do speed it off through the northeast there, where some are a little bit slower. This will have implications on that next wave as to how far does it, is it able to escape through the north or not? And looking at the American ensembles on here, we can see that as well. All of them are fairly certain as to where it will go, and then you can see the next wave generally moving through the to the north, although mainly one ensemble has it moving to the west there. It's too far out to say for sure, but we're fairly confident that it's going to move off to the north there. Now, looking at rainfall accumulation over the next 5 days or so, not a whole lot. Parts of the northern Bahamas could see up to 2 inches of rain. And this is the European run over the next 5 days. The Outer Banks may see an inch of rain. The Northeast could see a fair amount of moisture, up to maybe 4 inches of rain in some spots. And then looking towards areas like Nova Scotia, not really anything. But Newfoundland, mainly around just under an inch of rain. And looking at Bermuda, again, under an inch of rain, maybe 0.7 inches of rain, not a whole lot. But if we look at the American run here, shows a bit higher totals. South Carolina could get 3 to 4 inches of rain. The Outer Banks, similar story there. And not a whole lot for Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, but maybe up to an inch of rain in Bermuda. Looking at the German run, again, keeps most of it offshore, not showing a whole lot of rain there for the North Carolina, only around half an inch. Same for Bermuda there. And it keeps all the rain away from parts of Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. And yeah, even the higher resolution models don't really show a whole lot of rain impacting land masses. Thankfully, it's staying out in between those. But I did want to show you all something. The waves here are going to be the biggest problem with this storm. As the system continues to move northwards towards the Outer Banks there could be some pretty high wave heights there, 20-foot waves. Just offshore of the Outer Banks. Bermuda could get around 10 feet waves, but yeah, generally over 50-foot waves could be in the core there. But generally all around this area here could see some pretty unfavorable, pretty dangerous rip currents. Even remember, this could be deadly in some areas if you aren't careful, because you may think, oh, it's clear skies, we're fine, we're not getting affected by this hurricane, but yeah, you are. And it's going to be impacting quite a large area over the next few days. It isn't until at least Saturday and Sunday and Monday that it actually starts moving away. And then the beach conditions start getting a little bit better. Now, if we take a look at the Hurricane Center discussion, they say Erin is expected to produce life-threatening surf and rip currents along the beaches of the Bahamas, much of the east coast of the United States, Bermuda, and Atlantic Canada during the next several days. Beachgoers in these areas should follow advice from lifeguards, local authorities, and beach warning flags. Storm surge, flooding, and tropical storm conditions are expected in North Carolina Outer Banks beginning late Wednesday or Wednesday night, where tropical storm and storm surge warnings are in effect. The storm surge will be accompanied by large waves leading to significant beach erosion and overwash, making some roads impassable. Tropical storm conditions are possible in Bermuda on Thursday and Friday, where a tropical storm watch is now in effect. Interest in the U.S. mid-Atlantic and southern New England coast should also monitor the progress of Erin, as strong winds are possible Thursday and Friday. Now, if we take a look at the forecast cone again, keeps it out to sea mostly, the center at least, but tropical storm watch in effect for Bermuda and tropical storm warning in effect for parts of North Carolina. See that? Okay. And now let's see what else here. Looking at the storm surge forecast, from the South Santee River over to Cape Lookout, there's a storm surge forecast of 1 to 3 feet. From the rivers of North Carolina there, in between the Outer Banks, again 1 to 3 feet. And from Duck to, Teague, around 1 to 3 feet. But mainly from Duck to Cape Lookout, that's the area, the Outer Banks, 2 to 4 feet of storm surge there. And that's where the storm surge watch is in effect. Looking at rip currents here, we can see that today's forecast here shows high risk for pretty much the entire east coast there. And tomorrow that will remain the same story there. And if we look at the potential rainfall, not really showing much rain at all for North Carolina, maybe up to an inch for the Outer Banks and including Hatteras, but not really anything there. The main impacts of rain will stay out offshore, and is now leaving the Bahamas. All right, and now if we take a look at the again on the WeatherWise app here, we can see that there are high surf advisories all the way from southern Florida, all the way up to Rhode Island and parts of Massachusetts there. And tropical storm warnings, again, just in effect just off the coast of North Carolina and parts of the Outer Banks and some of those bays there, with tropical storm watches in effect for parts of Virginia Beach and a little bit farther north than that. You can see some of the hurricane warnings that are offshore. Now, if we take a look at the probability of tropical storm force winds, and actually first, if I show you all these surge, these are some of the areas that will be in the 1 to 3 feet range, that blue coloring, Myrtle Beach, Emerald Isle, farther north there, Elizabeth City, Virginia Beach, Hampton, all those areas in the 1 to 3 feet range, and the 2 to 4 foot range for the Outer Banks there. It includes Kitty Hawk and generally just the Outer Banks. Again, though, some of those roads could be inundated. We'll see, though. Now, if we take a look at the probability of tropical storm force winds over the next 5 days, we can see that some of the Outer Banks now have around a 20 to 30% chance, which I'm surprised that the numbers are quite low, considering the fact that they are under a tropical storm warning. Parts of New Jersey only around a 1 to 5% chance range. Same for areas like Boston. Areas on the parts of southeastern Massachusetts has around a 5 to 10% chance of tropical storm conditions. Parts of southern Nova Scotia as well, and parts of far southeastern Newfoundland. Bermuda has around a 5 to 10% chance range as well. And the Bahamas still, the northern Bahamas, mainly remaining at around a 5 to 10% chance. If we up this now to the probabilities of damaging winds, it stays around 1 to 5% chance for the Outer Banks, and again for southern Nova Scotia and southern Newfoundland. Bermuda is no longer in that probability. And if we take a look at the probabilities of hurricane force winds, it stays mostly completely offshore, except for this island. I forget the name, Sable Island, there with a mainly around a 1% chance of hurricane force winds. But again, though, hurricane force winds should stay offshore. It's just going to be mainly a storm surge threat. Now let's answer some of the questions about this storm. Ryan says, Erin absolutely downpoured San Juan last Saturday. Yes, I saw that before. They got a lot of flash flood warnings, all that stuff, the outer bands. So, I mean, that's a great point, though, that even if you're not getting the center here, if you're not in the center of the cone, you could still receive impacts from the storm. And yeah, lightning and power outages everywhere. Yeah, I saw that. TC XLC32 asked an interesting question. Do you think 17W was a tropical depression or just a low pressure area? I believe 17W is the one over China. I do believe it was a tropical depression. A scatterometer pass confirmed it did have an organized low-level center. I believe I went tropical cyclone at, I don't know when exactly. I think I might have done it at, definitely not 18Z. It wasn't 0Z. I think it was 06Z on the 18th. Yep. And had it as a brief tropical depression as it moves inland there. It did have that low-level center, and it still has a broad circulation. That's why we are still tracking it as a remnant low as it moves farther into China. The peak was likely around 30 knots, so only around 35 miles an hour. Ryan's is asking me for my peak for Erin. You believe it's 160 miles an hour and 15 millibars. I believe it could be in the range of, let's see, I think it's around 145 to 155 knots. So that'd be around 165 to 180 miles an hour. I'm most likely going to go with 150 knots or 175 miles an hour on Erin. I was surprised that the National Hurricane Center was underestimating it quite a bit. I am going to be doing my analysis either later today or tomorrow on the system, and an animation will likely be released probably not this Sunday, but the next Sunday after that, which will show the peak intensity. Let's see what else. Hello, everyone. Exo says, I'm calling it. Erin will be 95 miles an hour in the 2 a.m. outlook. 95 miles an hour does not exist due to not to mile an hour conversions. It would either be... Oh, wait, 95. That's... I think you meant 95 knots. Oh, Exo, I don't think that there's a delay. It's just that I'm reading the chat now. Let's see. What are your thoughts on how the first 4 storms peaked at tropical storm, but the 5th is a Category 5? I mean, it's pretty typical that your first few storms aren't going to be as strong. Beryl is an exception. There are some exceptions, but I feel like that this is fairly average on how long it takes for you to get your actual first major hurricane. Of course, whatever it does, if it tries to be a minimal Category 3 or powerful Category 5, it's all just synoptic stuff. All luck, mainly. Ryan's asked the track of Hurricane Iona. I didn't do that yet. Wow, okay. I guess I'll do that next then. Thank you for reminding me about Iona. I completely forgot about that storm, how I did not animate that. Let's see what other questions, though. Yeah, in cyclone animations, the reason why Erin wasn't really a repeat of Irma was because of the fact that the system, there wasn't any major pattern changes. Like, with Irma, there was a powerful typhoon that moved north, and then it forced the ridge to move and kind of block Irma down. But yeah, on how far east it formed, it's quite interesting on the fact that it formed quite east. I remembered humoring the possibility that it could form at around, let me see when here. It was right around here that I gave it, 2 days before this, I gave it a 10% chance of becoming a tropical cyclone at this hour, or before. And I saw people clowning me like, oh my god, you're believing the GFS, all that stuff. I was like, it's not really the GFS that's showing it, it's showing that multiple models, even the European, were humoring the possibility that it could try and become a tropical cyclone as it moves to the northwest. It did have a low-level center there, organized circulation, so all it really needed was some stronger convection. And just after that, likely within 6 hours after that, but the National Hurricane Center believes 12 hours after that, became a tropical cyclone. So, I mean, that 10% might have been an underestimate, not an overestimate, in my opinion. Let's see what else. Oh, the curse of Chase's spamming mouse strikes again. Yes. Yes, thank you all for reminding me about that. That's my mouse. Now let's see. Demian says, Chase, what's your thoughts about how the GFS and ECMWF not performing well on tracking and intensity of Erin? Does this make you anxious about the future of our weather forecast, specifically in hurricane season? Not really. I mean, the models did an amazing job forecasting that recurvature. They were fairly consistent far out, mainly our hurricane models. Mainly these models right here. They were consistent on the fact that it would recurve, especially when it got to that 7-day range. It seems like, though, that models did a pretty good job on handling the fact that it would recurve, that the trough would try to carry it out. Let's see what else. Yeah, cyclone animations. It did intensify quite fast. Extreme intensification. And yeah, I see you guys mentioning the fact how you go to sleep and then it wakes up pretty quick. I think I actually have a GIF I can show you all about that. Let me see if I can actually do that or not. I swear I have this. Wait, why can't I? Okay, found it. Let's see, this is either gonna let me show you all or not at all. Come on, where is it? Okay, sorry about this. I'm trying to find one of the memes I've made, because that's so true, though, the fact that it will just intensify pretty much out of nowhere when you wake up, and then you see it's so much stronger than you initially thought. Is it this one? Huh, okay. Nope, whoops. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to pull it up. Where is it? I swear I saved this not too long ago. I have so many saved memes and whatnot. Oh yeah, it has been a while. Whoops, okay. Let's see if this is gonna work or not. I'm gonna open it up here. Is it gonna try and download it? Okay, I can show you all this. Here's a look at the thing that I was talking about right here. This is just pretty true if you track tropical cyclones, where as soon as the sun rises, then all of a sudden it's a powerful major hurricane. This was Lee of 2017, which intensified pretty quickly after the sun rose. You can see the comparison from the sunset and sunrise, so this is pretty much what happens with storms like Milton and Erin. Alright, let's see some other questions. A GIF, yep. Cyclone animations asks, Chase, will you ever do a worldwide cyclone animation like Force 13? Probably never, because that's just a lot of work there and not a lot of traction. And I've done most of the Northern Hemisphere storms except for the North Indian Ocean for analyzing stuff. I don't really analyze the Southern Hemisphere unless it's a storm I'm going to animate. Like, extensively analyze it. I'll analyze it every day in these graphics right here. But I wouldn't really be analyzing it every 6 hours or so. Unless it's something that became like a pretty strong hurricane, or excuse me, cyclone. Yes, Ryan's. Let's see what else. Yes, Ryan's. I still don't know how the XP works. Now again, if you have any questions, you can always let me know in the chat and I will gladly answer. About anything across the world. In fact, let's take a look at some of the other systems that may form around the world. On the European AI model, we can see this tropical wave right over here that could develop as it moves north towards Bermuda, and then it has the other system quickly developing. Could become a brief tropical cyclone, and then that wave will move on to the into the Caribbean. And then they are showing a brief signal in the Bay of Campeche, which has been something noted by the Climate Prediction Center. Could see something develop out of that. Maybe the same exact tropical wave that we're watching now. We'll see. Nothing over the next 7 days, though, in the Caribbean. Looking at the Eastern Pacific, though, we can see that system over here that may try to develop. I'm surprised the Hurricane Center hasn't marked that yet. In fact, let's see if they have marked it. Still not. Okay. Okay, let's see what else. Where do I go? There it is. Looking in the Western Pacific, again we have 90W moving into the Philippines, and then onto the South China Sea, into the Gulf of Tonkin there, and then into Vietnam. That's just the European AI model. Not showing a whole lot after that. Gets a little bit quieter, which is nice. And looking in the North Indian Ocean here, could see a brief land depression, something like that over the next week or so. We may have to mark that as an area of interest, but nothing just yet. And in the Southwest Indian Ocean, if we take a look at that, not really seeing a whole lot at all there. So again, it's quieted down quite a bit across the world of tropics. TC asks, I'm not sure why the NHE labeled it as Invest 99W, or excuse me, 99L. The reason is because it could become a pretty brief tropical cyclone. I mean, this is nearly a tropical cyclone right now. The only thing we're really lacking is the circulation. Whoops, why did I close out of that? If we take a look at a scatterometer pass on it, so we got this pass and we got this one not showing anything. Oh, come on, pretty much all misses there. Can't really determine how organized that center is. Of course, we got some winds moving from the north there, and then a little bit of a broad circulation in there, but we can't really see the main center in this loop, at least. But yeah, it could become a brief tropical cyclone, so they're trying to monitor it pretty closely. And if we take a look at some of the hurricane models, since they should begin to run on this system, let's see if I show vorticity, that might help. And not really showing a whole lot on the H-Wharf there. And if we take a look at the HAFS models, not showing a whole lot compared to analysis. In the HAFS-B model, again, not showing anything out of that. But yeah, that's why they labeled it as an invest. Hi, Zenali. How are you doing? Gee, I think 90W could be strong. It is a possibility. Now let's actually cover 90W a little bit. Its rainfall impact, not expected to be a whole lot over the next 5 days or so. Let me actually extend this more. Maybe around up to 100 millimeters for parts of the northern Philippines. Nothing too intense just yet, but the system is expected to cross Luzon. And actually, if I pull up Weather Nerds here, and I pull up some of the ensembles, let's pull up the European ensembles, and let's go over to the Western Pacific on this system. You can see where the wave is now. This is where it is right now, actually. And if we go forward in time, we can see the system will begin to approach the northern parts of the Philippines there, reaching it by around, this would be, I'm guessing, around Friday morning or so, into Friday nights, and then into Saturday morning, and still even into Sunday morning, crossing the Philippines there. So pretty much it's a weekend system for the northern parts of the Philippines. Before then, it starts to move into the South China Sea. Some of those ensembles even once it as a major typhoon, and some of them as well want it as a typhoon. It's just really too far out to determine how strong it's going to get, because remember, these are mountainous terrain here, so this could really mess up the circulation. Or if it tries to do a little bit of a jump over the island, it could be much more healthier. So again, the quicker it develops over the next 48 hours and where it goes, if it goes more north or if it goes more south, that will have implications on how strong it gets over the next week or so. Again, we'll have more updates on that storm if it's popular enough or if it's impactful enough. Yes, Southwest Indian Ocean is inactive right now because we're in August. And yeah, Damien, you are welcome. I like showing the world of tropics, not just one area. This video's focus was mainly on Erin, but I like to show the global view of tropics since we have a lot more stuff going on right now. Speaking of which, let's take a look at Tropical Depression 18W. That's going to be something we'll need to look at slightly. It does have that circulation, organized circulation, and some thunderstorms there, but dry air is really trying to choke it out. I don't really know if it's going to strengthen to a tropical storm or not. It could, briefly, as it moves towards Japan. I'm not sure, though. It may remain just a tropical depression and quickly become a remnant low if more thunderstorms don't try and fire around it. Alright, Cyclone Animations ask, do you think Lee had 1 or 2 lives in 2017? I don't know if you saw my animation on it. But in my animation, I do believe it's still the same system. I was quite confused why the Hurricane Center... Or wait, no, hold on. I'm trying to think. I think I'm thinking of a completely different storm that was in 2005. Because I think that was like the same exact case. 2017's one. Do I have Lee 1 and Lee 2 in 2017? I think so, right? Okay, yeah, so In my analysis there, I have them as two separate systems. I forgot about that. That's Lee 2017. I have them as two different systems. I think it was another trough that tried to develop out of nowhere there. It wasn't really of tropical origin. So they're pretty much two systems. One of the circulations dissipated and a new one tried to develop. So I don't think it's the same, like two lives. I believe that system was Lee there 2017 was two separate systems. One dissipated and another one developed and took its place pretty much. Zanelli asked about 90W. Let's actually take a deeper dive into 90W. We haven't done that just yet. As we can see, 90W is currently a tropical wave, and you may be thinking, what tropical wave in the Western Pacific? This isn't an African easterly wave, this is just a tropical wave. Basically, it has an axis there where the winds kink around there, all around it there, so this system will continue moving to the, generally to the west, and maybe west-northwest. But yeah, we can see a lot of healthy thunderstorms here, helping to lower that pressure, and create more of a circulation or vortex. And if we take a look at some of the zoomed out imagery of 90W, we can see quite just how large this system is. It is, that may lead to its downfall though, the fact that it's a little bit too large, it's harder to consolidate. We may be seeing a little bit of a circulation trying to develop in there. But again though, the system will be moving to the north, west-northwest towards Luzon, and then generally towards the South China Sea. I don't think I've seen anything from Bagasa just yet on that system. But again, the system will be in a pretty favorable environment. Actually, let's take a look at that to fact check that. I haven't really looked at it too much as to why it could struggle. I'm going to look at some of the dry air. Is that a problem? Not really. As of the latest European run. If we take a look at shear, though, that may end up being the problem. Yeah, I mean, it gets faced from some northerly shear over the next 36 hours or so before it moves into the, let's see there, here, actually, cyclonic weather has a good feature for this model data. Let's see here, I swear that it has something for this. Will this show the shear? Yes, it does. Okay, wait, hold on. This is quite helpful to look at. Does the European have it? Yes, it does. So if we go forward in time somewhat, we can see some of that northerly shear impacting the system here. Not too unfavorable, but it is going to be noticeable for a system this large and this weak. It's not organized that much. It doesn't have really a full-on core. But as it moves into the South China Sea, shear should start to let up and mainly be an upper-level anticyclone to help it organize after that. Do these not go out that far? Yes, they do. Okay. Looking at the American run here, similar story there. It's mainly just going to be an upper-level anticyclone to help lower that shear. Would have good outflow. So I feel like the conditions are quite favorable for the system as long as it doesn't choke in a whole bunch of dry air. Yes, cyclone, let's see, animations, yes, 2 lives there for Lee. I've seen other people do that as well, like Force 13. Oh yeah, Tara mentions a good point there. Based on the... How are they #1 fan if this is their first Oh, wait, never mind. I thought that they just entered the chat and they're suddenly #1. But yeah, look at microwave imagery. If we take a look at microwave imagery on Erin, it does show the fact that it does have an eye wall now. It's quite, like you said, elliptical there, but it does have that full core now. So the system could try to rapidly intensify over the next 24 hours. So really, I wouldn't discount the possibility of a Category 4 out of this over the next 24 hours or so. It's going to also be entering in a pretty favorable jet interaction to exhaust all that heat out. Let's see what else. Is no one talking about Category 5 Jose? Yeah, that is something that does have support because Recon wasn't in there at its peak. Man, it sucks reanalyzing it with like 3 other people there. It's just me seeing like, man, these storms aren't as strong as I thought they were. For like Irma, Maria, those kind of storms. Saying that, man, like, the National Hurricane Center didn't do a really great job on estimating it. They were using unreliable SFMRs. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the end of the video, I credit the 3 people who helped on the analysis there. Yes, Florida Storm Chasing Adventures mentioning the fact that, well, El Nino is coming back. Not really paying attention to that too much, the large-scale patterns, mainly focusing on individual storms, because really you can have an active El Nino year and an inactive La Nina year, so I just mainly focus on like the 2-week pattern at most. Beyond that, it's pretty hard to forecast. Right. I'd actually like to cover more of 90W here. If we take a look at the European run, it doesn't really show much development before it crosses Luzon into the South China Sea, but it does show a lot more development towards the end of that run. If we take a look at the American run, again, doesn't show much development at all, only until it reaches the South China Sea, but stays a pretty broad and monsoonal system there. Also, what's that in the North Indian Ocean? Just making sure that's not a tropical cyclone. Okay, that was just pretty suspicious. Alright, now looking at the Canadian run, it does have the system quickly developing, potentially even to a typhoon over the next 3 days, before it moves into parts of the northern Philippines, before it eventually moves into the South China Sea and eventually into China there. Potentially as a typhoon, again, this is more on the higher end of the solutions. Looking at the German run, shows a much more reliable solution, only maybe a tropical depression or a tropical storm at max before moving into the Philippines, and then remains one as it enters the South China Sea. Stays more to the south, though, compared to the rest of the models. Zen asks if I think 90W will be a Category 4. I doubt it. I'd be willing to bet against that. I don't see that really happening out of this. It could because it's moving over the Philippines, that's going to stunt some of its development, so really it only has maybe 3 days at most to try and organize, and it's going to be pretty sloppy. If it becomes quite large, like I suspect it will be after it moves across Luzon, it's going to be quite sloppy, so it takes a lot longer to consolidate or try to rapidly intensify, so I don't really think it's going to get that strong. Maybe major typhoon, Category 3 at most, but just it all depends on what it looks like after it enters the South China Sea. Zen asks, what if it has a rapid intensification? If it does, let's say the Canadian model was right here, and it was starting to develop a core before it moves into the northern parts of Luzon, and again, I think that this is quite unreliable. Has it as a Category 1 in the next 3 days or so. If it does still have that core as it tries to enter the South China Sea, we could see some rapid intensification out of this with the upper level anticyclone there. We take a look at the upper winds there, pretty favorable for rapid intensification. So I do think that it's possible we could get some rapid intensification out of this. It's just, remember, it's going to have to take time to actually build a core in the first place to rapidly intensify. Exactly, Tara mentions a good point there. If Erin will, different storm. I thought that they were talking about 90W with this. Their point mentions, though, I'm also wondering if Erin will even rapidly intensify at all, considering its size. Also, every single time I fall asleep tracking a hurricane, Erin goes wild. Yes, again, it's pretty much this loop right here. Alright. Damien asked if the Canadian model is okay to use. I mean, sometimes it overestimates, sometimes it underestimates storms. It is just a good thing to look at if you want to see a high-end or low-end solution compared to the other models. Because if the storm ultimately fails or ultimately succeeds like crazy, it's a pretty good model to use on that. Again, I do believe that the other models are better, but they also have their own biases. And again, if you have any questions, you can let me know in the chat. Also, this is kind of interesting. I've changed the time zone to Eastern Daylight Time there on the bottom left. Not used to that. I've been so used to the Philippines and all that stuff. This is my first mainly Atlantic stream here. I've been holding off because these slight impacts, I mainly do a stream if slight impacts are expected. But there really wasn't expected earlier, and as soon as it was expected, it was for some of the Bahamas, and then as soon as I would stream, it wouldn't be there anymore, so it really wasn't a whole lot to talk about. And of course, if the system was actually moving towards North Carolina, I'd do more updates about it. Cyclone Animations asked if Ian was actually a Category 5 for a brief moment. I do believe it was, briefly, but then it started weakening before landfall. Is there any signs that Erin potentially going to rapidly intensify based on atmospheric and oceanic data? Well, again, I mean, the waters are warm enough, but I'd mainly look at the atmospheric. Yep, or yes, you did mention atmospheric conditions. If we take a look at the European run, for example, and we take a look at the jet stream here, should be right there. It's going to be very favorable for its exhaust there, and it's already going to be tapping into that over the next 24 hours or so. So any heat it's generating from it rapidly intensifying, it's able to be vacuumed out to the northeast there. And you can see how powerful that jet actually gets over the next 48 hours or so, coming off of Nova Scotia. And it continues to be a pretty good thing before then it shears it apart. So what will help it strengthen is ultimately going to lead to it weakening. So I did want to mention that there is going to be, depending on where this low is, there could be a pretty favorable environment for it if it's more in line with that upper level anticyclone over here, because it does have this tut right over here that would help to provide outflow, and it'd be in combination with Erin there to help it really intensify, but it seems like it's just on the southern end and it gets somewhat sheared by it. But I mean, that jet interaction is really going to be what's helping, what will help Erin intensify. Remember, it's going to be really helpful once the storm starts moving to the northeast. Right now it's been moving towards the north-northwest, almost due north, but once it starts making that northeastward turn, maybe by Thursday morning, it could be really rapidly intensifying at that point, maybe even Wednesday night. Yes, jet. Yes, TC. Then that's been the fun thing. The Eastern time zone is I was gonna say perpendicular, parallel. I don't know why. I was going to say the fact that they're opposites with the Philippines and China, or almost with China, which is actually quite entertaining. when I'm doing my streams and stuff, because all I need to do is just look at my time. Being a Floridian, I can just see, oh, their time is just the complete opposite of mine in terms of AM or PM. So here's a look at the center of 90W right now, and that's what I was talking about with the circulation potentially forming right around here. Let's see if we have any scatterometer passes on it. A bunch of contamination there. But I mean, you can kind of see the trough right in here. There where the winds will kink around it. This was around 12 hours ago, so it is quite out of date. Oh, and here's a look at Erin showing how large its wind field is. Here's a look at generally where the tropical storm force winds are with the storm. So I mean, it is quite a massive system. And hurricane force winds mainly were on the northeastern side as like 12 hours ago or so. Of course, the system has organized again a lot more. This doesn't even really show hurricane force winds on the western side at all. Let's see what else. Hurricane Erin was also nuts. Thankfully, a hurricane will not hit some landmass areas for now. If it tries to go westward, what will happen? Well, I mean, it's been doing some shenanigans over the last day or so when it continues trying to move west. But again, though, it's going to be this trough that tries to dig it out, or it's going to reach its hand out. Actually, I can just show you guys this on models. If I show you the height anomaly here, we can see exactly why there. Pretty much this trough here is acting to weaken the ridge right there. And so what it's going to be trying to do is it's going to be trying to lend a hand out to Erin. And that's why then eventually they finally meet over the next 48 hours or so. He lends his hand out there for just chicken feet, I guess I just drew. But he lands his hand, the trough lends its hand out for Erin and then pulls it with it there. And that's why it moves to the northeast, at least on that run there. See if there's a better depiction. Same thing there. Yeah, thankfully it's not getting trapped under a ridge there, over here and forced to go west. Yeah, Cyclone Animation says this is kind of like 2004 because no storms formed in July to August, then storms start flying in. I don't know, because we had storms forming in June, stuff like that. We're above average now in named storms, year to date. Let's see. Tara asks, if Hurricane Erin rapidly intensifies when it's in its warmer waters, the jet is more enhanced and Erin uses the jet. Could a high in Category 4 or low in Category 5 be possible? Okay. I'm going to look at the shear on the system. And let's take a look at some of the... Oops. Let me go over here. The HAFS model, for example. One of the problems is it's going to be quite broad by that time. We can definitely see the pressure dropping there. I'm a little bit worried if an eyewall replacement cycle is going to happen and try and kill it out there. But if we take a look at some of the shear over the next... Let's see, I think that this should show the fact that it's lowered. No, it still doesn't show that there. Okay. Let me go a little bit earlier than that. That might be more helpful. There we go. That shows how just how low the shear is going to be. Only around 10 to 11 knots. So it's going to be quite favorable for it to quickly intensify. Yeah, it shows that eyewall there kind of could try to undergo an eyewall replacement cycle. If that tries to happen, then it's really just going to fumble everything. Dry air, dry air might be impacting the system as well. So that's kind of a problem as well. But yeah, the jet interaction going to be quite favorable. I'd say low NCAT 4 at most. And let's take a look at the jet interaction on here. First, let's look at the dry air it's going to suck in from New England there. That's ultimately going to lead to its death there in combination with the jet interaction. Speaking of which, let's look at that jet interaction. Right there, pretty favorable for it to continue to intensify when it's north of the latitude of North Carolina there. Before then it gets completely sheared there. You can see how the winds go from moving around it as its outflow to then moving right through it, right over here for example, just pushing all the thunderstorms through the northern side there, northeastern side to be more exact, then gets completely torn apart there. That is a horrible wind shear. We can actually take a look at some of the satellite imagery as well here. So again, it may be facing issues with some dry air. We'll see how it tries to develop its core or rapidly intensify if it tries to. But then again, it's going to get sheared pretty quickly there. Maybe around by day... No, it looks like it's still a tropical cyclone. By around day 4, then day 5, it's no longer one. Oh wow, that's quite cool though that you can see the front on this one. And maybe it's a post-tropical cyclone by day 4 almost. You can see the front right through here. Pretty satisfying to see there. Yeah, you can just see how sharp that front is. I haven't really seen that before on the halves runs. Curious what vorticity would look like on that. Jeez. Well, that's actually pretty helpful in determining where the fronts are. Jeez, okay. Let's see any other questions. Yes, jet and trough, okay. Axo asks, when is jet, or I was going to say jet 2 holiday, you said that. Axo asks, when is track of tropicals from Dexter? Maybe never, because we're doing Iona, and then we'll do, let's see, this storm right here. What's its, oh my god, Erin. And then maybe Fernan, and then on, if, depends on where the storms go. Let's see what else. Yeah, actually I don't think it's going to hit the East Coast. Let me see if there's any questions actually on Twitter, just to make sure that I haven't missed anything. Dang, okay, someone asked a while ago, yo, what's good? Hello. One person asked that like 30 minutes ago. Oops. Didn't really expect anyone to be there. Okay, let's see what other questions we have on YouTube. Yes. TC says, I find that when tropical cyclones interact with the jet stream, it gives them like a second wind. I believe that happened with Hurricane Sam as well. I believe, at least. It was moving northeast, so I would assume that it had the jet interaction. Ryan asked about Henriettes. I could do that as well. We'll see. And Mackenzie asked if 90W is becoming a tropical storm. So if we look at the graphic here, shows it with around a... Here, if I pull this up... Oops. Drew that a little bit too wonky there. It shows it having around a 20% chance over the next 48 hours. This is for a tropical cyclone, so tropical depression, storm, or stronger, but at least a tropical cyclone, or at least a tropical depression, and a 60% chance of doing so within the next 7 days. So around a 20% chance generally in this range, and then an 60% chance in total throughout this whole part of it. Sam, Category 5, I believe. Sergio. Okay, let's see where that is. Yeah, I mean, it's been moving a little bit to the south recently. Southwest, mainly. Which I'm not sure what that's going to do over the long run. It's probably going to keep it more to the south. I'd still think that it's going to try to go back up to the north a bit. Let's actually look at the pattern. That's a little bit more helpful. Right over... Canadian's the one that strengthens it the most. Let's take a look at this here. Why is it going north? Why would it be going north? It seems like it's mainly due to the... Why would it be going north in the first place, actually? I'm trying to figure out why. I believe I'm learning more about steering patterns and stuff like that. I believe it's due to the troughing right over here on the East China Sea, mainly from 18W, that surrounding area, trying to pull it to the north. Then there's nothing really pulling it to the north after that. It's just going to move west, maybe northwestwards after this little trough over here. Oh, and then looks like the Canadian model wants another tropical cyclone after that. Yeah, that's one of the things we were mentioning beyond the 5-day range. Yeah, I don't think Ida was a Category 5. It got close, and I do believe there is an argument for it that it could have been a Category 5. Not based on my old video there with the recon data. That was not correct. But I forget what it was though that actually did show some support on it. I still think it was a high-end Cat 4, nearly Cat 5. If you gave it like another 6 hours or so, or another 3 hours, it could have been a Category 5 at that point. And yes, 18W is a tropical cyclone. Mackenzie asked, and sorry, I didn't see your other questions there. No, Ryan. Cyclone Animations asks, where do you think 99L in the Atlantic will go so far? Well, one of the things it's going to have to deal with is a lot of dry air surrounding it, but first it has around another 24 hours to try to develop into a tropical cyclone, and we can see that on here. If we take a look at some of that precipitable water here, whoops, this one right here, precipitable water anomaly. Where even is the system? Hold on. Right there, and you can just see all the dry air to the north there, really just choking it out. But you will see that the moisture continues moving westwards there, and it may try and build back into a tropical cyclone. This is something that the Climate Prediction Center is watching. Even the European AI model wants it to become a tropical cyclone once it enters the Bay of Campeche. So this is something we'll need to watch in the long range. But at least in the near term, it could become a brief tropical cyclone right there. Maybe as early as tomorrow morning. But then the system will become a tropical wave again, mainly open up into a wave axis, continue moving westwards, and then eventually maybe get pulled up to the north there. By this little trough there. I don't know how... It's just so uncertain. What the heck is this run showing? When is this? 12Z on the 18th. Okay, again, it shows that tropical wave gets pulled northwards towards Florida. Okay, that's fun. But yeah, I mean, that's something we'll need to watch in the longer range, but at least nothing just yet. I would expect the Hurricane Center would eventually mark it as a possibility beyond the... What was I going to say? Beyond the 7-day range as we go further in time, if model support still holds. Speaking of which, let's look at some of the ensembles, if they support anything. 12Z run, not really showing anything with that. The American ensembles, maybe something. Ooh, okay. Yeah, American ensembles are starting to pick that up now. That's interesting. Something possibly developing in the Northwestern Caribbean. Yep, and that just came up recently, which makes sense. And if we take a look at the latest European ensembles, again showing the system moving to the north there, the system that would eventually become 9DL. Western Pacific on this storm, I want to see if the support has changed. Alright, keeps it more south, crossing Luzon there, then enters the South China Sea again, likely to develop there. I also am noticing this little tropical wave right there, which has had some support recently. Curious as to what that's trying. It's really only the European model that's been supporting any development out of that. That would be in the Central Pacific. Let's see, what else? What other questions? Any update on the North Indian Ocean and Southwest Indian Ocean, Mackenzie asked. Let's take a look at that. If we take a look at the Indian Ocean as a whole here, and we look at the European AI model to show longer range patterns, it does show the possibility of something tropical forming over the next 3 to 4 days or so, and maybe beyond that in the next week or so in parts of western India. Could see a brief land depression and maybe another one after that. It's pretty common to see. After that, though, maybe a broad area of low pressure there in the Southwest Indian Ocean. Not anything to really look at too much there. So, I mean, it's going to stay quite quiet there. AWA asks, but what happens if a cyclone hits 768 millibars? I don't know. Shouldn't be asking me that question. I don't know. If it's record-breaking like that, I'm not sure. Ryan's asked, when will you end the stream? Well, I mean, I'm getting a lot of viewers right now, so I'm not ready to end it just yet. It's a good question. Cyclone Animators ask, what tips would you give to a new hurricane animators? Be consistent. Be consistent with what you do. Set a plan and stick to it for years. Because as soon as you deviate off of it and take a break or anything like that, then you start to continue that break. I am going to be entering in college next Monday, so I'm still going to try to stick to the plan of animations every week on Sunday. And that's been quite helpful to not overwork myself. I remembered seeing animators animate stuff every day. Like, there would be an animation every day. And I'm like, okay, they're getting a lot of views that way, and they're getting a lot of subscribers that way, but they're going to experience burnout, okay? Like, and that's what they did. And then they eventually quit YouTube. And they sit around the 200 to 500 subscriber range. Some channels got up to 2,000 to 4,000 subscribers, and then they quit. Like the Phone Expert and Median Egg, those people, which we've recently passed, actually, Median Egg, to become the 4th largest tropical cyclone animator. Even people like NXTHAN, those people there. I'm curious to see the Social Blade stats on that. I'm just going to pull that up real quick to see, because we are actually nearing to pass them. And speaking of which, if you aren't already subscribed, please consider subscribing. It helps out a lot. Babe, we are only around 120 subscribers away from passing them. They really didn't do any animations on this past hurricane or typhoon seasons, which I was quite surprised about. I mean, we did all 4 basin animations, and they didn't upload any of them. Yeah, I mean, it's mainly just about staying consistent as an animator. Stay committed is what I like to say, is commit to things. And I see that a lot of people don't do that. Really, they'll sway off stuff. If I'm committed to something, you're already halfway there. And that's what I do with the YouTube channel, with any other projects I work on, like a Discord server, social media. If you stay consistent with something, you're gonna do better than a lot of people. So as an animator, just even if your animations aren't that great, just be consistent with it. You can still try to grow and stuff like that, like grow how good your animations look and stuff like that, but don't overdo it. Like, I believe that was one of the problems with Nathan, the NXTHAN animator, is he went too overboard on his animations and stuff like that. That just takes so much time and effort that just you can't even really make anything without it just taking so long. I like to find the middle ground of that. And if there was any other advice I'd give, stay out of drama. Just, it's not worth it. It's irrelevant. I don't really... People are like, oh, Chase, have you heard this animator drama with this animator? I'm like, no, it's really irrelevant, so just stick to you, I guess. Just focus on animating, okay? Don't focus on all the drama and stuff like that, if that makes sense. I hope I can help you, give you some words of wisdom there. Zen asks, back to the tropics there, just want to help someone out with their animations. 9DW could be a similar to Christine as it landfall in Aurora as high-end tropical storm. Could be, and it could be just a low pressure area. We don't know yet. Only giving around a 20% chance of even developing before the Philippines, or before it crosses the Philippines. Yes, Ryan, that the Indian Ocean has had a lot of tropical cyclones recently, land tropical depressions, or tropical cyclones. Let's see. David asked, hey, what are your opinions on the Central American gyre system that could develop in the Bay of Campeche from the Climate Prediction Center? Again, we were just discussing that. That is going to be partly due to 99L, the system that we're currently watching near the Cabo Verde Islands. That tropical wave is going to continue moving westwards. Here's, again, the proof that that's 99L right over there. If you keep tracking it, you can still see the wave right over here by the 4-day range. If we go towards the 7-day range, 7 to 8-day range, you can still see it right over there. And then it's going to get pulled to the north there. You can see it into the Yucatan Peninsula there, and then into the Bay of Campeche. Again, there's a lot of variabilities here as to how far north it gets picked up. Does it go up here? Does it stay to the south? It's very uncertain as to where it goes. If it plows into Central America, that really cuts out its chances. But if it gets drawn more to the north, it could try to develop there. Let's see. Exo says TPE is a VTuber now. What? Okay. Are you sure? Is there any proof of that? I have not seen them and heard from them. And they say the drama in the weather community, that can never happen. Yeah, unfortunately it happens all the time. It's unfortunate, though, that even some of the people who are advanced are in that kind of drama. And just... I'm not gonna vent about all that. Oh man, sorry to hear that, cyclone animations. Yeah, about deleting an animation. Thankfully, I have not done that yet. I don't delete animations at all. So a lot of storage. But yeah, I always make sure to save things and don't delete things at all there. Because as well, if you want to look at that animation and you can grab stuff from it, and I'm talking about a hit film. Anyways, and how do I make the basins? I spent roughly 1 to 2 weeks making those maps for the world of, or like for my animations. That took a lot of time, placing all the names, placing all the latitude and longitude lines, because I was like, oh my god, all these people have these maps, and they just don't sync up together. I'd like an international map that I can use. Stuff like Iona, for example, something that I'd plan to animate maybe. How it crosses into the Western Pacific. No maps really do a good job of combining the Eastern Pacific and Western Pacific. Or if you think about Bonnie, the storm that crosses over from the North Atlantic to Eastern Pacific. No great maps for that. So I was like, screw it, I'm just going to make my own, and I spent a lot of time doing that. Exo says top 3 crossover, and for me, one of them is going to be John. Of course, Dora is definitely going to be one. I don't know what else. Let's see. HGC, do you think by the month of September, Atlantic and the Western Pacific will be more active? Let's take a look at the Climate Prediction Center to give you an idea on that. First, I'm going to make sure I can pull this up. Okay. I'm going to show you two things mainly on this. First, let's pull up the week 2 to 3 graphic here. This shows, if we look from August 27th through September 2nd, let's take a look at it on here. If we look at the tropical cyclone formation, we can see that they do mention the possibility of a tropical wave developing, and I believe they'll have something mentioning that on here. Oops, okay. Chaos, okay. At the start of the week 2 period following this system, environmental conditions are forecast to become somewhat unfavorable for additional tropical cyclone genesis across the Atlantic MDR for several days to a week. Additional easterly waves are forecast to emerge over the basin from Africa towards the end of week 2, and that's why the 20% chance was added there by the Cabo Verde Islands. So just the possibility that a wave could develop. Again, it's not saying that like, oh, this wave is going to try or this wave. It's just saying that there's going to be a lot of waves that come off and one may try to develop, like this one, 99L. Looking at the discussion there for, let's see, do they mention the Eastern Pacific there? During week 3, okay, they don't mention the Eastern Pacific there just yet there. During week 3, more favorable conditions are favorable, okay, they will anticipate to develop across the basin and a broader region for potential tropical cyclone formation is indicated. Dynamic models indicate a potential for formation across the Western Caribbean or Gulf of Mexico during week 3, as well as with, with low-level westerly winds favored to build across the region. So again, that's why they're mentioning the fact that there could be 2 other systems there, one in the broad main development region and then one in the Caribbean Sea and then onto the southern Gulf of Mexico and Bay of Campeche, which that would be from September 3rd through the 9th. Actually, if we take a look at the formation of this system, it's a little bit late there though. I don't know, maybe they're talking about another system after that, I'm not sure. Because this is September 3rd right there, so the fact that it's from September 3rd through the 9th, don't know if that's the same system. It might be a Central American gyre kind of system that gets pulled up to the north, like one of the people in the chat mentioned. But if we look at the other basins there, let's see where did it go. Over the Eastern Pacific, a 20% chance is highlighted for tropical cyclone development for both week 2 and 3, with 40% chances indicated by the week 3, where there is better support in the probabilistic genesis guidance. So again, there could be something developing in the Eastern Pacific in early September and towards the end of August. Now, if we look at the Western Pacific, elsewhere dynamic models indicate a potential for development across the Western Pacific Basin at fairly low latitude during week 2. Confidence is reduced somewhat across the region due to anticipated low-level enhanced easterly winds. A potential for development continues for the Western Pacific into week 3, with the targeted area formation slightly shifted poleward there. So again, we could see tropical cyclones again, like 17W or 18W, try to develop over week 2 and week 3, so late August into early September, just like those kind of systems. Nothing too strong of a signal. So again, it's not really going to pick up in activity too much. It's going to try and quiet down a bit. I expect the same for the Atlantic. Let's see, what other questions? Anita, 1977. Huh, okay. David asks, where did you learn to animate? Well, I learned to animate from someone called FCX Animations, if you've heard of them. Funny Comics King, that person. I know that they're not really... I don't know. They used to be very egotistical and stuff like that. I'm hoping they've improved. they're the ones who taught me how to animate, because I was like, I don't know if that's for me, because animating seems difficult. And really, it wasn't too difficult. I mean, they taught me the ropes on how to do it. And then I just made better icons, stuff like that. Someone else made better icons for me, and then that built my confidence more. And then I started just animating more. It took me a good amount of time. If you've seen my animations and like the stuff I've done like 4 years ago or so. So it's taken me, I'd say, about 2 to 3 years to get this level of expertise. Let's see what else. Erin is now 100 miles. What? It's weekend? Okay. That's quite surprising. Wow, okay, so did they not find support? Let's here, I'm going to pull up recon data. Because I fully expected them to find better support than that. Jeez, that's bad. That's real bad, okay. Whew, alright. Not seeing a whole lot of strong winds on that at all. Man, okay. I'm curious as to why it's so low there. Oh wait, no, actually that's not bad. Hold on. Sorry, I was mixed up with the scale. Wait, why'd they lower it? Flight level winds were 107 at their max. I'm gonna do a real quick calculation there for the... Let me try this again. It was 107, and I believe that was at 700 millibars there. It's weird, it supports around 95 knots, unless they're flying at a different altitude. Which I'd love to be able to determine that. Okay. I'm gonna pull it up on Tropical Tidbits then, to get an idea of where they're flying at. It looks like they're flying at around 700 millibars, so yeah, that supports around 95 knots, although it's so far away from the center. Thought it was 700 millibars, okay. Just asking my Discord there. Pretty interesting to see that happen in the band. If we take a look at the recon pass, though, I guess that makes sense that it happened that far out. There's been some strong winds pretty far away. Anyways, though, I'm surprised that they lowered intensity on it. Oh, did they change their forecast? Because they should be forecasting a major hurricane out of this by now. There we go. That's smart. Let's look at their discussion. Erin has become a little better organized during the past several hours. Convectional satellite imagery shows persistent, strong convection near and to the north of the center, while microwave overpasses and reports from Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunter aircraft indicate that an eye wall is trying to reform. However, these changes have not yet resulted in tighter inner core wind field, and the maximum 700 millibar flight level winds of 107 knots were measured around 100 nautical miles from the center. Based on this, the flight level winds closer to the center and satellite intensity estimates, the initial intensity is decreased to a possibly generous 85 knots. That's interesting. The initial motion is mainly to the north at 10 knots. The hurricane remains situated in a weakness or break into the subtropical ridge and is expected to turn northward along the western side of the ridge on Wednesday. After that, Erin should turn northeastward with some acceleration as it moves into the southern part of the mid-latitude westerlies over the North Atlantic. There is no significant changes to the forecast track through 72 hours, and this part of the track lies near the center of the tightly packed track guidance. After 72 hours, there's more spread, and the consensus models have shifted a little northward. In response, this portion of the track has been shifted to the north. For the next 36 hours, Erin will remain in an environment of light to moderate vertical shear and strong upper-level divergence. Much of the intensity guidance supports the hurricane should strengthen during this time. The spread-out wind field can become more concentrated near the reformed eye wall. On the basis of this happening, the new intensity forecast calls for slow strengthening during the 36 hours. However, an alternative scenario is that the central pressure falls considerably without a lot of increase in the winds as the hurricane grows larger. That's possible. After 36 hours, increased shear, all that stuff, extratropical system, by 96 hours now. Okay. Then it should be noted that 34 knot and 50 knot wind speed probabilities beyond 36 hours in the text and graphical products are likely underestimating the risk of those winds occurring. That is because of the forecast wind field of Erin is now considerably larger than average compared to the wind field used to derive the wind speed probability products. Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. I was so confused. Why are they doing tropical storm warnings if the wind probabilities aren't that high? Okay, that makes sense now. Let's take a look at the probabilities one last time there. This is still a little bit out of date. In fact, we can probably see that in the Hurricane Center here. I mean, I was quite surprised to see the fact that they were only forecasting around now a 20 to 30% chance still for parts of the coast of the Outer Banks for tropical storm force winds. But yeah, it seems like it's underestimating the size. But yeah, marginal impacts could be expected for parts of Newfoundland now. Anyways, this has been quite a long stream, and not as many people are watching. So, I'm going to be ending it soon. Anyways, thank you all, or here, I'll discuss it one last time here. Again, expected to speed off through the northeast over the next few days, become post-tropical around the day 4 range. Marginal to slight impacts are expected along the coast of the Carolinas, mainly due to wind and surge. Nothing with rainfall. Parts of Bermuda and parts of Sable Island in that marginal impacts as well. But yeah, I don't really expect another update or so. If we remain at code orange, then the next update would be in 3 days or so. So we have day 1, day 2, day 3, and by that point, slight impacts aren't really expected anymore. So this may be the last update on Erin. But yeah, of course, I'll have more updates on Twitter. So if you want to follow me there, or on Facebook, or on Blue Sky, or even join the Discord server to track it live with me. But anyways, that's about it. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next update.